Hello guys and welcome back to another class of our course about the complete introduction to data science with Python. So in this class we are going to start working with Seaborn and we are going to create our first graph with this amazing tool. So basically the first graph that we are going to create will be the dist plot, which consists of a histogram that is directly inside which consists of a line that is directly inside of a histogram. So basically you'll see it's pretty cool. So what exactly we'll do, it's pretty simple. We will first of all import a database or a data set directly from the internet, more precisely from GitHub, and we are going to work with those databases. So for those of you who don't know from where exactly we'll import our data, we'll import it from here. So basically, as you can see, this is GitHub and this is all the databases that you guys have. So basically there are plenty of those databases. So I'm gonna show you how to import any of those databases, and we are going to work with the most simple ones. So in this case, the most simple ones would be flight and, in my opinion, tips. So basically those are the two databases that are not really complicated and really interesting to work with. All right, so let's come back to our PyCharm. So basically the first thing to do would be to import everything right here. So everything has been imported. One last thing, so importing all the things that we need. So we have NumPy, SciPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, and finally Seaborn. Very important, Matplotlib, don't forget to write down .pyplot because if you don't write it down, you will not be able to work with all the plots. All right, so the first thing that we will do is pretty simple, is importing our databases. So we need to create a variable that we will call, in our case, database. So basically I'm calling it database. You can call it whatever you want. So we'll create a variable that will be called database. All right, so when it's all done, the next thing that we'll do, we will use a function that will be referred to Seaborn. So we'll start what we will write with SB. So we are making a reference to Seaborn in this case, and we are going to ask Seaborn to load a data set. So basically data set. In this case, we decide what data set that we want. So let's say we want to import diamonds. So this is one of the data sets that we have. So just to be sure, we can come back here. So we have a data set that is called diamonds. So diamonds. So this is exactly what we'll do right now. We'll import this data set. And just to be sure that everything works fine, what we'll do, we'll print it. So to be able to see what it looks like. So we will print database, which is our, in this case, our variable right here. So let's print it and see what it looks like. All right, so as you can see, everything works fine. So we have printed our database. Our database works. So here we go. We have our diamonds database. So basically this database is pretty huge. It's consisted of 53,940 rows and 10 columns. So this is a pretty big database. The next thing that we want to do right now is pretty simple. We want to create our plot or our graph. So for those of you who didn't understand what I just did, I imported the database. So here you have diamonds, but you can change it by any other database that you want from this website right there. So pretty simple. If you want to change it for dots, you can change it for dots. If you want to change it for MPG, you can change it for MPG. And what it will do, it will simply import other databases. So you can create your plots with any database that you guys want. All right, so for the next step, what we'll do, we will work with one of those variables right here. So I'm proposing you to work with the carrots or price. So let's work with carrots. So what we'll do right now, we are going to create our plot. So once again, we are going to make a reference to Seaborn. So it's gonna be SB. And the type of plot that we are going to create will be the dist plot. So basically we have our dist plot. So the dist plot will be referred to database. So basically we are going to take all our, we are going to take our information from database, and then from what variable? From the variable, in this case, caret. So we are referring everything to database, so to the variable database. And from database, we want Python to look for caret inside of this database right here. All right, so we will write down caret. So basically, it will use those numbers that are right here to create the plot or the graph. All right, next thing that we want to do is simply show everything to see what it looks like. So it's going to be plt.show. We can open up and close the parentheses that we have. So this this function right here is just to show everything. This function right here, what it means, it's pretty simple. We are using the reference SB to be able to work with this plot function that is referred to Seaborn. And basically what this function does, it will ask database. So it will have a reference to database. So we are going to go to database, and from database, we want to extract the element carat. So basically in the database, we have diamonds, and from diamonds, we want to extract carat. Basically, when it's all done, you guys can run everything. So you'll have your database, and finally, you'll have your plot right here. So as you can see, something that is pretty simple. You have your histogram, and basically you have the line inside of the histogram. Once again, this is a bit complicated to understand since we are working with carats, but this is exactly what it will be generate. So this is what we will generate with our with this type of graph. So yes, of course, sometimes we can have graphs that are specialized in some things. Maybe this graph is not the best graph to know carats, for example. Once again, this is a good way to show you guys what type of graph that you can generate. Next thing that you can do, you can add bins. Bins will simply add, will simply tell you what is, how big you want your histogram to be. So basically, it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4. So you decide, you will simply add it here. So basically inside of carat, you can add your bins. So basically simply write down bins, and you write down the, how big you want your bins to be. So it's gonna be just here. So we wanna load this database, and here we go. We want to have our bins, and we decide how big we want them. So basically in this case, let's say we wanna have bins of 1. So this is how big we want our histogram to be, and we can run everything. So here we go. As you can see, the bin size have changed and the histogram has changed. Once again, this is not a perfect example to do it with the carats, for example, because once again, it doesn't give a graph that makes a lot of sense. But once again, as you can see, this is how it works. So basically the bins is simply how big you want your histogram to be. So this is what you guys need to understand. So really important, you need to write it down right here. I was a little bit lost earlier. So you write it down right there. So database, and after the element that you guys want to extract from your database, so you write down your bins. All right. So I hope you guys right now understand what exactly you need to do to be able to create this plot. So basically your histogram with a line inside of it. And I hope you guys understand, you can use it in any other way that you want. So if we want to simply do a little bit another thing that is pretty cool, so basically simply change the databases. So we can, for example, work with dots in this case. So let's choose dots, and we run everything. So we'll simply take this away. So here we go, it's gonna generate dots right here. So those are the dots, and what we can do right now, we can, for example, extract something else. So for example, we want to extract the coherence from our dots. We can do it. So we can simply copy everything and paste it right here. So we want to extract coherence from the database dots. And if we run everything, as you can see, we'll receive our chart right here. So basically this would be our histogram inside. This would be our histogram that will be generated. So as you can see, you can work with any database that you guys want from this website. So that's it for this class, guys, and see you all in our next class.